My name is Chloe, a 38-year-old company employee. I live with my husband, Henry, and our son, Daniel. Henry is 5 years younger than me, making me the older spouse. I thought we had built a good relationship, but there was one problem. Henry's parents don't like me. When I first greeted them, they looked at me with a very unpleasant expression. When I told Henry about it, he brushed it off, saying maybe it was just a coincidence, but at our wedding, it was made clear. I never thought you would marry such an old woman. I was shocked by those words and started avoiding his parents. They didn't try to interact with me either. Yet, Henry suggested that we live with his parents. His reason was the old-fashioned idea that as their only son, he had to take care of his parents in their old age. However, since I also had a job, I thought it might be good if they could help take care of our child. Soon after we started living together, I discovered Henry was cheating on me. I found out because of a trip his parents took. One day, Henry said he was going on a trip with his parents. When I suggested that Daniel and I join them, he said, "This is a family trip that has been a tradition for a long time. Maybe we can go together after we've become closer since we started living together." At first, I didn't understand, but if that's what Henry wanted, then fine. I felt relieved to have the house to myself without his parents around, so I sent Henry off. At that time, I decided to take Daniel on a trip too. Whenever I planned a trip before, his parents would get angry and say, "Why aren't you inviting us?" So we gradually stopped going on trips. However, Daniel had been begging to go on a trip because his friends were going. So I decided to take this opportunity to go on a trip with Daniel. Daniel loves animals, so we went to the zoo, and he was excited to see the pandas. Seeing Daniel happy made me very happy too. As we took a break and bought ice cream, sitting on a bench, Daniel suddenly shouted, "It's Daddy." I looked in the direction he was pointing and saw Henry walking with a woman. They were walking arm in arm like lovers. And when I looked at the woman, it was my sister, Kinsley. What is going on? I was shocked but couldn't react on the spot, so I tried to divert Daniel's attention, saying, "They're having a panda event over there. Wanna go see? Pandas? Let's go." I successfully diverted Daniel's attention, but he kept saying, "Why is Daddy here? He should have come with us." That was just someone who looks like Daddy. It wasn't him. But there were people who looked like Grandma and Grandpa too. Those were also people who looked like them. It wouldn't make sense for Daddy to come here without you. If he were coming, he'd bring you along. Oh, I see. Well, that's fine. With that, Daniel was convinced, and we headed to the event area. But the whole time, I couldn't shake the feeling of unease about why Kinsley and Henry were together and why his parents were with them. However, since Daniel was still young and he liked Henry despite Henry not paying much attention to him, I couldn't bring myself to get a divorce. Moreover, why is he with Kinsley? Unless I ask for the reason, we probably won't get a divorce. Maybe they just happened to meet. No. But that's unlikely. They were walking arm in arm. There must be a reason for that. And if we were to divorce, I would need solid evidence to claim alimony. So, I took pictures of the two of them just in case. Since our trip was just a day trip, Daniel and I went straight home from the zoo. I also checked our house for any evidence, but there was none. 2 days later, Henry and his parents returned home. As I was wondering how to bring up the topic, Henry said he wanted to talk. "Can we get a divorce?" "What? Why all of a sudden?" "I found someone I love. I can't stay with you anymore." "Is it Kinsley?" "What?" "So it is. I actually saw you at the zoo. Since you said you were going on a trip, Daniel and I thought we'd be bored and went to the zoo. We came back on the same day, but I saw you and Kinsley walking arm in arm with your parents. Daniel saw it too, but I managed to cover it up. But I never thought it was really you. I'm sorry. But I fell for her. At first, I loved you and thought I couldn't do such a thing, but as we met more often, I found her more attractive." "Wait. What do you mean? It sounds like you weren't the one who initiated it. Did Kinsley approach you? Technically, no. Henry hesitated. As I started to get a little irritated, his mother came in. I set them up. Mother-in-law? What do you mean? Well, a younger woman is better. You're too old. I don't appreciate being called old by another old woman, but what do you mean? That's exactly the point. Older women say things like that. I always wanted Henry to marry a young woman. You were already 30 when you got married, right? Henry was still 25 then. It's strange. I felt sorry for him being deceived by an old woman like you. Wait a minute. It was Henry who liked me first. I initially refused because of the age difference, but Henry insisted and we got married. I even quit my job and joined a new company because of him. I was about to get promoted too. I don't care about that. You made your choice, didn't you? Then why didn't you acknowledge that Henry chose me? And how could you let him go after my sister? At the wedding, I noticed a very beautiful woman at the family table. When I asked who she was, I found out she was your sister, and she was only 20 at the time. She was the young woman I was looking for. She was so beautiful that I started talking to her and we went out to eat a few times. Then I suggested, how about my son, and surprisingly, Kinsley was eager. She said she'd be happy to, so I set them up. At first, Henry resisted and said he wouldn't meet her, so I lied and said you were having an affair. Then he agreed to meet Kinsley. An affair? I never did such a thing. That's a lie. I was shown the proof. Proof? Here it is. Henry's mother showed me a picture of me talking with a man in front of a hotel. But this was a business partner. This is a photo of me having lunch with a business partner. But this hotel is next to a restaurant. The photo is conveniently cropped, but my boss, this man, and I were having lunch at the restaurant next door. Going out to eat with clients happens all the time, but I've never gone alone with anyone before, and Henry knows that. So why is this coming up now? Because looking at this photo, no one would think you went to a restaurant. When I saw this photo, I thought you were cheating too. And that made me lose interest. Plus, Kinsley is so naive and cute. You've lived longer than me, and I always felt like you were mocking me. But Kinsley is different. She listens to everything I say with wide-eyed wonder. It's easy being with her. So, how long has this been going on? I guess I fell for her about 3 years ago. Until then, I loved you and was committed because of Daniel, but when I thought you were cheating, and Daniel started getting more demanding, I just wanted to escape to Kinsley. And when you got promoted right after changing jobs, it was really hard for me to handle. I see. Fine, let's get a divorce. Living with people like you is painful for me too. I can't deal with someone as insecure as you. I bet Kinsley is only with you because she knows you'll take over your father's company one day. But whatever. Stop being bitter. You're just an old hag who's been dumped. Henry and Kinsley have a bright future ahead of them, so hurry up and divorce him. Did you hear that? I said I'd divorce. Mother-in-law, maybe you're too old to understand what you're saying. Before you call someone else old, take a good look at yourself. How rude! This is exactly why I told Henry not to marry you. Too bad for you. I don't care anymore, so let's get this divorce done. I'll send you the papers, and you send them back. I'll file them myself to avoid any last-minute changes of heart from you. I don't trust you. You probably still love me and won't want to go through with it, so you might not file them. Don't worry. I don't have any feelings left for you. It would be strange to go together to file the papers, so I'll do it. I'll let you know when it's done. Is that okay? Fine. Make sure you file them. I want to marry Kinsley as soon as possible. Got it. I decided to get a divorce. Why was I hesitant to divorce just because Daniel is young? I should have left this terrible family sooner. I need to get back at my husband. Even though he said he wasn't keen at first, he believed his mother's lie about my affair without checking with me and betrayed me. And I will make sure my in-laws and Kinsley regret it too. I made up my mind. However, I have to tell Daniel about this. He will be sad to live apart from his beloved dad. Daniel. Mom and Dad are going to live separately. You and I will leave Grandma and Grandpa's house and move to my parents' house. Okay. As long as I'm with you, Mom, I'm fine. Thank you. We have to move out by tomorrow, so can you help me pack? Of course. Daniel acted cheerful, but I knew that his okay meant he was dissatisfied. Usually, I would talk to him repeatedly to resolve his complaints, but this time, I can't help it. Even after we move back, I'll keep showering him with love. That way, he'll understand. It's too harsh to tell Daniel about the divorce directly. So, the only thing I can do is raise him with all the love I have. We packed together and finished the move with the help of my parents. When I explained the situation at my parents' house, my mom was furious. I can't believe this. I'm gonna help you get revenge. But Kinsley is your daughter too. You can't do that to her, right? I've seen her do plenty of outrageous things, but this is too much. I know what to do to get back at her. What do you mean? She's after your father's inheritance. What? I want to talk about this in detail after Daniel goes to bed. He's playing by himself now, but this conversation will take a while. We can't neglect him any longer, it'll make him even more unstable. You're right. Let's talk after he goes to bed. After that, I spent time with Daniel, had dinner, and put him to bed. Thankfully, since our old house and my parents' house are in the same school district, Daniel doesn't have to change schools. Once Daniel was asleep, my mom and I talked. You said earlier that Kinsley is after Dad's inheritance? Why is that? My dad has been living in the hospital recently due to poor health. He's not expected to live much longer, and my mom visits him every day. But why would my sister be after his inheritance? I don't think Dad has that much money. Kinsley has debts. She kept asking your father and me for money, but your dad finally gave her $20,000 as a severance and cut ties with her. But one day, when I left the hospital, I saw Kinsley there. When I asked why, she said she was visiting someone and I told her your dad was hospitalized. She smirked. She's probably thinking she'll get some money. As family, it's unlikely she'll get nothing. So she's definitely after the inheritance. But she's not the only one. What do you mean? Henry's family. Their business is in terrible shape. Really? Kinsley probably thinks she's lucky to be the heir. Of course, she and Henry don't know this. But his parents, hearing from Kinsley that your dad is critically ill, think they're lucky. They have huge debts. The business is on the brink of collapse. And Kinsley and Henry are clueless, all excited. How do you know all this? Because I'm well informed. I keep in touch with the neighbors. Is it that widely known? Why didn't we know? They wouldn't tell family. If they found out who spread the rumor, they might use some nasty tricks to harass them. I'm glad you're free from them. I hope Kinsley cuts ties with them quickly too. I see. Anyway, Kinsley wants the inheritance to pay off her debts, and Henry's family wants it to pay theirs. But if that's the case, wouldn't I have been enough? They probably got greedy when they got involved with Kinsley. And they think younger is better. They're really stupid. Now they've taken on not just their debts, but Kinsley's too. Really foolish. The more I hear, the more I'm glad I'm getting divorced. Exactly. Getting revenge will be easy. Let's visit your father tomorrow. But isn't it tough for Dad to hear about this in his condition? Isn't it better for him to know than not? Don't worry, your father loves you. He'll listen to you, and it'll be less of a shock than if he didn't know. Do you really think so? Trust me. So the next day, I took a day off work and went to see my father. 3 months later, my father passed away. It was very sad, but he had fought hard against his illness, so I wanted him to rest peacefully. The wake and the funeral went smoothly. My father was loved by many, and a lot of people came to pay their respects. I was very touched and happy to see how much my father was appreciated. However, the atmosphere changed completely when they showed up. My sister and Henry's family arrived. My sister entered just as the funeral ended, saying, "I'm really sad. I wanted to see Dad again." And started fake crying. I watched her performance with a cold stare, thinking she should greet us first. When she finished her crying act, she said, "I'm sad that Dad died, but what about the inheritance?" My mom started laughing. "You go from crying to that? What kind of child are you?" I'm shocked. "I'm sad, but what's done is done, right? Oh, I forgot to introduce my husband, Henry, and his family. But I guess you know them." I don't see what's funny. And it's very inappropriate for you all to come together at a time like this. Kinsley and the others frowned. "Here, this is Dad's will. You need this, don't you? Whether it meets your expectations is another story." When my mom handed it over, Kinsley and the others scrutinized the document as if they could burn holes through it. Then they started making a fuss. "Hey! This is useless. What is this? This can't be right." That's what Dad left. There's nothing wrong with it. Actually, my dad wrote the will before he passed away, and after hearing about recent events, he left almost nothing to Kinsley, just a small piece of farmland he owned. Even if she sold it, it wouldn't be worth much, and it was so small it likely wouldn't sell at all. Kinsley cried loudly, frustrated that things didn't go her way. "Why? I thought Dad was on my side." "Of course not. He already gave you a severance payment." "But isn't Chloe getting too much?" "I asked him for it. I told him I'd pass away before Chloe and wanted him to leave money for her. Dad had a hobby of investing, so he had quite a bit saved up. But it's no longer your concern." "That's unfair. I deserve some money too." "There's no obligation. You did terrible things. You should be grateful you got any farmland at all." "But I can't pay off my debts with that." As Kinsley cried, Henry's mother jumped in. "Debts? What debts? You didn't know, did you? This girl bought whatever she wanted, even if it meant going into debt. Most of her debt is actually alimony." "What do you mean?" "She's had multiple affairs and had to pay alimony each time. That's why she's in so much debt. She probably thought marrying you would solve her problems, eyeing your family's company. You do love money, don't you?" "How do you know so much?" "Don't underestimate me." "But Kinsley, these people are just like you." "What do you mean?" "They were after your dad's inheritance." "What? How?" "What's the state of your family's business?" "How do you know about that?" "It's so bad that banks won't lend you any more money, right?" "How do you know that?" "Because of your dire situation, you planned to use the inheritance Kinsley would get, right? Using the excuse that family should share everything." "That's awful." "Well, it's awful on both sides." Then Henry, seemingly having an epiphany, said, "Chloe, how about we get back together? I never really matched with Kinsley, and Daniel needs his father. I think it would be better for him." "Really?" "I don't think so." "Why are you so cold?" "You betrayed me for Kinsley, and now that she's not getting the inheritance, you want me back? Are you out of your mind? And you said you hated old hags, right? Isn't that true, mother-in-law?" I asked Henry's mother, and she responded, "That's not true. Chloe, you have a good income and can handle household chores. This girl can't do anything. We were thinking of getting rid of her. The inheritance doesn't matter. Please come back, we need you." "I can't believe you're saying this now." I'm absolutely not coming back, and I never want to see you again. Aren't you embarrassed to show up here and disgrace yourselves? But I guess you have no shame since you do things like this. I'm divorced from Henry and have no intention of coming back. You'll have a hard time paying off your debts, but try to manage by selling Kinsley's farmland. That's impossible. There's nothing good about being young if you're useless. It's your fault for dragging Kinsley into this mess. How am I the bad guy? Can you take this argument elsewhere? This is really disruptive. Please leave. Then Kinsley, suddenly enraged, shouted, "Yes, leave. Don't desecrate my beloved father's funeral." Is she serious? Sis, I'm sorry for everything. But I didn't want any of this. Henry's mom forced me and Henry together. I didn't want it, but Henry kept pushing. We're family, right? We should support each other. What are you talking about after betraying me? I wasn't thinking straight. But I promise I'll be loyal to you from now on. Can you forgive this one mistake and share some of your inheritance? It's sad to see your sister struggling with debt, right? Not at all. Your debt comes from hurting others, and that's your fault. Why should I bail you out? I'd rather die. Why are you so mean? It's because you're stingy that your husband betrayed you, and your in-laws hate you. If people like you hate me, that's just fine. It's clear who's in the wrong here. Betraying a wife for a younger woman and then trying to steal her father's inheritance. I've never seen anything so absurd. So, Chloe, who will you help? Your former family who accepted you, or the sister who betrayed you? It's clear, right? You're all terrible people who betrayed me, and this sister of mine is the one who took a father away from my son. I don't need any of you and owe you nothing. Do you even understand why you're in debt? What do you mean? What caused your debt? If the business isn't doing well, you should lower your salaries and cut unnecessary expenses. When Henry and I were still married, you bought a new car with company money and took family trips under the guise of employee trips, enjoying Hawaii without any employees. If you'd cut back on those expenses, the business might have recovered. Living for your own desires leads to this. Switching to Kinsley was also driven by your desires, right? You couldn't boast about Henry having an older wife, so you wanted a young, cute girl. Messing with people's lives like that is why your life isn't going well. And here you are, making a scene, while our relatives are still around. Don't you find it shameful? Please leave. But if we don't get you back, we can't pay off our debt. Me too. Chloe, or even Mom, just give me some money. My mother shouted angrily. Enough! You're dishonoring your late father. Get out! You won't get a cent from us. With that, my mom called a lawyer to handle the transfer of the farmland to Kinsley and told them we would never see them again. After that, Henry's family's company went bankrupt due to their debts. Apparently, one of our relatives was a client, and upon learning about their despicable behavior, they cut ties, which dealt a significant blow, leading to the company's collapse. Moreover, it turned out Kinsley was pregnant, making divorce impossible. Henry, under immense pressure, desperately tried to perform at work, but his approach was all wrong. He yelled at subordinates and brown-nosed superiors without developing real skills. Eventually, Kinsley left his family and found another man. Whether she'll be happy with him is unknown, but she's still burdened with alimony claims from Henry's family, so her debt remains. It's doubtful her new husband will be able to tolerate that. I now live with my mother and Daniel. I tried to ensure Daniel wouldn't feel lonely, and he told me, "It's fun even without Dad. As long as I have you, Mom." The word whatever disappeared from his vocabulary, a sign that our love is reaching him. I will continue to shower Daniel with love and care.